What's up, guys? Learn to fight. I'm your host, Manny, back with another episode, back with a banger, starting 2025 off strong. Today we got Andrew Wiltse, multiple-time world champion in Jiu-Jitsu. I competed against him years ago, and we're going to talk about martial arts. He's been on podcasts like the Joe Rogan podcast, well-known in Jiu-Jitsu, one of the best grapplers in the world. So I'm going to bring him in right now. Andrew Wiltse, what's up?
How's it going? I just wanted to say I haven't been on the Joe Rogan podcast, but Joe Rogan did talk about me on his podcast, which I thought was pretty cool.
Oh, yeah? Oh, nice. So, let us know some of your accomplishments in jiu-jitsu and some of your accolades and stuff like that in martial arts.
Okay, the major ones are I'm a 5-time IBJJF World Champion, and I'm a 7-time IBJJF Pan American Champion, and I've gotten second at both the Pans and the Worlds multiple times outside of that. Flow Grappling had me ranked number 6 in the world at 185. So I've been around. I lived inside of a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym for more than a decade, trained for anywhere from 4 to 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for 10 plus years. So Jiu-Jitsu is, most people say Jiu-Jitsu is their life, but they don't really act like it's their life. I don't have a life outside of Jiu-Jitsu. Jiu-Jitsu is my life.
Yeah, I feel you there. Same here. I didn't live in the gym. When we were coming up back in the day, in St. Louis, we'd be training. We literally trained because we're like, all right, we have to beat Wiltse. We had to figure out how to beat.
Oh my God.
Literally, we'd be like, all right, we'll just be sitting there fucking trying to figure out how we're going to beat this dude. And we just heard about some madman living in the gym just all day. And there was legends about you, like, oh, he was born in the woods. Like, no one knows where this dude came from. How did he get so good? So how did you get so good?
So getting good at jiu-jitsu is a complicated thing. Consistency is key in everything. There were a lot of people that lived in the gym with me that I would not say got good. A lot of it has to do with my mentality and how I approach training. So, I talk about what I call buzzsaw passing all the time, but what people don't realize is that buzzsaw is a mentality that gets applied to everything, and it takes prep work. Okay, so like when I was a white belt, I was watching Marcelo Garcia and Hamilo Bahal, and I was watching all of these amazing guard passers, and I was watching all these really, really good guard players like Isaac Dorderline and Michael Lange and the Meows and shit like that. And I was watching the dominance levels of the matches where either of them had won. And I was trying to figure out, what's the best place to put all of my effort in jiu-jitsu, because it's got to be somewhere. You've got to have an A game. You can't just be neutral rounded. You can, but you won't win. Not at a high level. You have to be sharper than people at something. And I was trying to figure out what's the most effective style of jiu-jitsu. And after a long time of thinking about it and playing around and watching the pros, I just could not find anything more dominant than guard passing. Okay. And I had already kind of developed my mindset and mentality for grappling before I moved down to Daisy Fresh and moved into the gym and lived there because I had a judo coach on Drummond Island, Michigan called Mike Ogden, who had kind of given me early grappling training, no-gi training. It was a little class. We didn't really have a lot of people in it. A lot of times it was just me and him, but it kind of like got me thinking about what's the best way to win MMA fights and the best way to perform and compete in general. Because I've competed at a high level in everything I've ever done. I used to compete at a world champion level in Halo, and in StarCraft 2, I competed at a high level. All I do is try to be the best at what I do. So buzzsaw requires a lot of prep work. Okay, so what you got to do is you've got to drill until you have all these conditional if-then stuff built into your body and your mind, so it frees up your mind to not have to think about what you're going to do next. And you can spend all your time thinking about what your opponent is going to do next. And then you've got to condition your body so that you don't ever actually worry about getting scared, because the worry and the fear of getting tired puts a constraint on your mind, which puts a constraint on what you're going to see and be able to actually do and pull off. Because if you think you're going to get tired, you're going to hold back. And if you hold back, you can't really beat the fuck out of somebody.
Oh, man, that's beyond true. In MMA, the number one thing that everyone is worried about is getting tired in that cage. And I've found myself in fights holding back because I'm like, all right, I just want to make sure I don't get tired, and it really does put a hamper on you from opening up. You know, so I found it interesting that you say, well, first off, I agree completely with you that guard passing is number one, because in jiu-jitsu, you know, I feel like, especially nowadays, people forget that jiu-jitsu was a combat sport. You know, it's like, it's not meant to just be like, oh, pull guard, lay down. Like, no, you're supposed to be able to really fight with jiu-jitsu, and being able to fight, you have to have takedowns, and you have to be able to be on top, you know, like being like you. I don't know if you saw, but Chrome Gracie, he fought Bryce Mitchell, and Chrome Gracie's in there trying to pull guard, and he got knocked out. You know, he just literally got picked up, slammed.
That is a heartbreaking.
You know, it's like,
I did not know that fight happened. I actually know Bryce Mitchell. He's a friend of mine. I've trained with him before and stuff.
yeah.
But I would never in a fucking million years think that he would beat Cron Gracie. Jesus. Good for him. Good for him, but damn.
Yeah. And that's because Crone approached jiu-jitsu, or approached fighting as a sport jiu-jitsu type of thing, pulling guard and stuff. You can't pull guard in a fight. So I really honestly think pulling guard should be banned, you know, because I think it kind of pussifies jiu-jitsu, me personally. But you know,
so can I interrupt you a little bit?
Oh yeah.
So what I think you're trying to describe is the ability to impose your will on your opponent. Yeah. When you're playing guard, it's a lot more difficult, and people they're allowed to get away with a lot more passive, turtle-based, energy conservation-based styles, because guard doesn't take that much to do. It's very energy efficient to kind of just bring your legs back into play, unless you have someone like me trying to pass you and you're really getting pushed out of your comfort zone. But people get to a high level proficiency in guard significantly easier than they do guard passing, because guard passing takes more effort. It's higher risk, higher reward. You're the one who's going to fuck up if you fuck up. You know what I mean? People can get under your legs a lot easier. Like, you have all of these openings where they can attack you, but because you're on your feet and you're moving around and being dynamic, you can attack them in a lot of different ways. So it's high risk, high reward. And it's supposed to come down to who executes better at that point. But because people don't trust themselves, they slow down. And when you slow down as a guard passer, you play into the guard player's game. A slow-paced guard passing game is going to play into a flexible-based guard game every single time. I would give a slow-based guard passing game, I would give the advantage to the guard player most of the time, because they're just going to bring their legs into play. You're not going to pressure through them from a straight angle. You have to move and be dynamic to get the angles you need. And yeah, so I spent a lot of time thinking about what's optimal and what the optimal training and optimal jiu-jitsu. I wanted to figure out what, you know, if I don't make a single mistake from start to finish, and I want to win every single time based on that, even if my opponent doesn't make a mistake, what's that going to look like? And it's going to look like you take them the fuck down, you pass their fucking guard, you mount them, you get on their back, and you trap their arms and choke them. And then I literally built my entire jiu-jitsu game around that, you know. And of course, I'm proficient everywhere else, because you can't really, you have to be able to deal with whatever happens. And the more knowledge you have, the easier it is to react to what they're going to do and push your pace in different ways. But yeah, I think optimal jiu-jitsu is, it's exactly how it was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Take them the fuck down, pass their guard, and beat their ass.
Yeah. And your style, that's why I like your style, because you would go in there, take people down, just pass their guard, blow past their guard, get their back, choke them out with your lapel choke, or you would get the arm bar if the back wasn't working or whatever. And yeah, your style was perfect for me, because in MMA, I'm like, damn, that's really, really legit what you're doing. You know,
I was going to be an MMA fighter before I decided I got talked into becoming a full-time jiu-jitsu athlete. Yeah. When I was a kid, my goal was to fight in the UFC. I built my entire mind and body around being an MMA fighter first, and then I started learning high-level technical jiu-jitsu second.
Something I noticed about you, you know, a lot of people would say like, oh, he's just strong. He's just that. But
I'm not that strong, I don't think.
Yeah, no, you're strong as fuck. I remember, bro, I'm pretty strong.
I can't lift that much.
I remember you being strong as shit. Like, holy shit, this guy is strong. But yeah, maybe not lifting, because there is a difference. Like, sometimes someone not be able to lift X amount of weight, but they just have an X factor. And maybe the X factor was you're so confident in your technique that you're not second guessing yourself, and your opponents a lot of times are like, oh shit, I'm going against Wiltse, you know, and they're trying to really just be perfect, and you're just free flowing. And just
Can I tell you a little story about
oh,
like, strength and pressure?
yeah.
So I do a lot of the same techniques now that I did when I was a blue belt world champion. Right? And as a blue belt world champion, I always kind of wondered how I would do with like a black belt world champion. And you always have that in the back of your mind. So I got invited by Michael Sears from Flow Grappling. Actually, we were friends before he moved or worked at Flow Grappling. I got invited by him to go up to Chicago and train at Carlson Gracie headquarters at a Lucas Leitch and Marcelo Mafra seminar that they had going on. It was like they were there for a whole week. They were teaching the classes, and they were running a seminar at the end of the week. And I remember thinking, man, I'm fucking going after them as hard as I possibly can. You know what I mean? Because I want to know. You know, I don't think it's disrespectful at all to go after somebody you think is better than you. And you just don't know how you're going to do, because they're now a litmus test for you to test your own moves and see what's going to work and what's not. And where, because if I don't try my hardest, I'm not going to get proper feedback. And then I don't know what to work on. And I'm also not going to force them to try their actual good moves and try against me if I don't push the pace on them. So then I don't get to steal their shit. Otherwise, you know, they'll half-ass everything with me. So I put thought into it, but really everyone just thinks I'm an asshole. It just goes hard after everybody my whole life. You know, there's a lot of thought behind it. But anyways, so I rolled with Lucas Leitch first. And I remember I told everyone, I don't give a fuck what happens. I'm collar dragging him at some point into the mat. And I actually got a chance to collar drag him at one point, and I put his face into the goddamn mat. And I got to relish in having swept a black belt world champion for all of 5 seconds before he turned it up and beat the shit out of me.
When you were a blue belt?
When I was a blue belt world champion, yeah. I did not win that round. But Lucas was nice to me. Okay, Lucas, he definitely won the round, but he didn't like maul me. Okay, so now, and it took everything I had to just barely keep him off me for the round. You know what I mean? Like, I think he ended up passing me, and I don't think he mounted me. I think he held me in side control, which to me is getting my ass completely kicked. If I get passed in a match, I'm fucking getting mauled. That's how I consider it. And then after that, I was laying there on the mat, gasping for air. And then Marcelo Mafra, who's a black belt world champion, came up, but he's aggressive. Okay, he had watched me go with Lucas, and he was like, "All right, Wiltse's got some fucking pit bull in him. Let's see how he handles this." And he's like, "Do you want to go?" And you can't tell. There's a power dynamic. You cannot tell the black belt world champion no when they ask you to roll. So I was like, "Yes," I was exhausted. And then Marcelo Mafra gave me the most vicious beating I'd ever gotten in my life, basically up until that. And I remember thinking, like, I tried to put him in spider guard and these various other guards, that he would just like pop my hooks off in 0.1 seconds. And it just, the biggest takeaway that I learned from that was that the difference between a blue belt world champion and a black belt world champion was not the techniques you're doing. Because I could learn, like Lucas in a month could show me literally every single thing he knows about jiu-jitsu. I'm a fantastic learner, and if we spent a couple hours a day doing it, I would pick it up and learn it. But what he couldn't do is replicate his intuitive understanding of it and his feel and his pressure and stuff. And his pressure from everywhere was so naturally high. Like, his default pressure was so high, even when he wasn't trying to exert himself, because he is so confident and he knows exactly how much pressure he needs to be putting down to shut stuff down. So it's like that intuitive understanding, that experience. The experience is what brought the pressure, and the pressure is what people think of as strength. So when you're saying I'm really strong, I know I can't lift that much. You know, compared to like someone like Dante Leon, he lifts 700 pounds, but I can go toe to toe with him strength wise in a match. And it just has to do with like what you're willing to accept or not, how much of your mind you kind of have unlocked to push yourself and push the pace and exert yourself. And you know, you have to be strong too, but really it's experience and understanding.
Yeah. So how much would you say, you know, I study, because I'm still competing myself, and I'm trying to figure out how can I be my very best. And what I've come to understand through reading books like the Book of Five Rings, through times in my training when I feel super sharp and when I feel less, through times when maybe you're on a win streak and then you go on a losing streak, I found that I really believe it's about like 90% mental. You know, maybe
100%, 100% mental, man. But people don't realize the mind-body connection, where it's like if your body can't do something, your mind won't think about it. Or, you know what I mean? So it's like when you're more flexible, you'll see more options, because you know, even without thinking about it, that you can pull those movements off. So they'll come to your brain.
Yeah. And the confidence, you know, it seems like the difference between a champion and you know, like for example, John Jones, when he goes in there and he fights, because there's a thing when we say someone's a champion, I really believe it's just like a mindset and an archetype program that you have in your mind, you know, that's like you're a champion. You know, they all think in a certain way, you know, like what you're talking about with the confidence, how you're going after Lucas, you know, as where everyone else is going to kind of back down from him, you're going after him, you know. And when my best matches, it was always like, I'm going after this guy. I'm hunting this guy, you know, not thinking, just letting the moves flow, going from move to move, attacking, you know. So would you agree with that? That it's being a champion is more about like it is a mindset. And how would you really explain the champion mindset?
So it starts with the mindset. You know, actually winning and being better than everybody. You know, there's so many factors that go into it. How you train, how long, you know, like your nutrition, your sleep. Like the sports science applies to jiu-jitsu, whether jiu-jitsu people want to believe it applies to jiu-jitsu or not. But it starts with the mindset. You're right, because you have to have the belief that you can do it. Because if you don't, again, that doubt and hesitation will drag you down. It's like, imagine your brain can have constraints around it, you know, and you know, it's I tried at one point to get a therapist to work with people at Daisy Fresh because I really understood how important your mental health is. You know, and I know that's ironic coming from someone who had a public episode of psychosis and stuff, but like mental health has always been a big thing that I've considered to be essential when it comes to competing. I just didn't realize I was going to have an episode of psychosis ever. You know, that struck from nowhere. So yeah, the champion mindset. You have to believe that you can do it. There's got to be that core part of your belief that doesn't think that you can't do it. Okay, because if you think you can't do it, you'll stop thinking about certain stuff. You won't push yourself as hard in the training sessions. You won't go after people in your matches as hard as you're supposed to. You won't think about things that are more, you won't do all the stuff you're supposed to do that suck, like dieting before the competition and not having to cut water weight the day of. You won't think about sleeping 2 days before your tournament match instead of just 1 day before the tournament match, because you looked up the science and 2 days are the most critical and not just one before your tournament. You know, like the champion mindset will make you look into all of the little nitty-gritty details, and you'll build a pyramid, but it's a stuffed full pyramid. It's not empty, and you'll have a hierarchy of stuff that you consider to be important or not. In other words, you'll treat it like a job. You'll treat it like a profession, like you're trying to be the best in the world. And that was one of the gripe I always had with all of my training partners all the time. They would tell me that they want to be world champions, and then I would look at what they're doing, and it's like, you don't act in any way like you really do want to be the best. You know, you're not training the way you're supposed to be. You're not taking anything seriously the way you're supposed to be. You act like you're just saying the words. You don't truly want to be the best in the world. And because that's what it means to be a world champion, not just go win the worlds. You want to think, I want to be the best, period. And then I'm going to win the worlds. You know, it's you have to switch your goals up. It's not, I just want to win the worlds. I want to be the best and then win the worlds. But yeah, people really struggle with how to, you know, I think sports psychology is so far behind in jiu-jitsu is, and I think a lot of it had to, you know, what's funny is that the mentality that the Gracies and stuff had, they had a lot right, actually. You know, I've been critical of them because they've done a lot of stuff that I don't agree with, but you know, a lot of it's cultural. A lot of it's like they come from a pride culture in Brazil, and I absolutely understand why they do and act the way that they act. I do. But if you take the toxicity out of the pride culture and the stuff like that, a lot of the stuff that they think and do, it is what made them fucking champions. You know, it's like when you really believe certain things or you have core beliefs that are just ironclad, it's like having a shield against negativity and doubt. And they were shielded from it. They fucking truly believed in what they were doing, you know, and if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, they deserve a lot of credit with jiu-jitsu without a doubt. But, you know, we did have judo and stuff like that before, you know, they made it more mainstream. But they did have a major role in the current modern day jiu-jitsu. You know, no one can debate that, you know. I actually trained with the Gracie, Neiman Gracie. Guy is incredible at jiu-jitsu, especially when it comes to fighting jiu-jitsu. But I want to get into, so this is something that I found in my life, when I was competing in jiu-jitsu every month, you know, training every day, all day, you know, 2 days, 3 days, and you do this for years, at a certain point, because that's what you have to do to be the best. That's what you have to do to win, you know, period. Like, you have to take it seriously. You got to go hard. The diet has to be on point, everything, because the other guys trying to take your head off, and they're dead serious, and you're going to go against guys like Wiltse who are in the gym all day, coming from Brazil. This is all they have. This is their only way out.
Do you know who I thought about all the time when I was trying to figure out how am I supposed to be trained? Because I came up with all my own training regimens all the time.
Yeah.
All my own conditioning regimens, my drilling regimens, stuff like that. Is I always imagined there were these kids in Brazil, you know, they don't have to be kids, but there were people in Brazil that were living in the favela, and they had nothing but jiu-jitsu like me, except they struggled a lot more than I did because, you know, I lived in America, and everything's a lot easier to fucking do. It's a lot easier to survive and get places and prosper. And I imagine that, you know, I'd have to face the want and the fucking fury in that kid's eyes out on the mats, and I'd have to match it. And not just match it, but I'd have to match the level of training that hunger that kid has with my own. You know, I had to replicate that in myself. So I thought I need to make my want to win has to be equal to that kid in the favela every time I go and show up on the mats.
Yeah. And you could see it. The hunger, you had the hunger in you, you know, without a doubt. My green screen's acting up. Damn it. Well, anyway, so something I noticed is that, you know, people who compete at a high level, you might be great at jiu-jitsu, you might be great at MMA, you might be great at whatever, and you're doing this for years, right? And now a lot of people look up to you. They're like, oh, Wiltse is so great at jiu-jitsu. Manny's great at jiu-jitsu. You're my instructor, whatever. But you can be great at martial arts, great at fighting, great at whatever your sport is, but be a white belt in other places in life. So, for example,
sure, like not having Manic episodes.
Yeah, exactly. So, for example, for me, you know, I'm competing. I wasn't hanging out. I wasn't like really hanging out with girls or trying to have a girlfriend and stuff like that. So then now when I actually get a real a girlfriend, I'm in a real relationship, right? It's kind of hard at first, right? Because I don't really want to deal with her nonsense because I'm thinking about taking this guy's head off. So I'm not going to be soft and blah, blah, blah. Or, you know, dealing with money. You know, I made a white belt and dealing with money. Basically, when you're competing at a high level, you're going to be like a white belt in multiple areas of your life. You know, so I wanted to ask you basically going into the Manic episode a little bit. You know, a lot of people know you are, but a lot of the viewers probably won't know who you are as well. So going in, how much do you think the Manic episode was being a high-level competitor? You have multiple areas of your life where you're a white belt, and then kind of everything coming at you at once, you know, girlfriend, life struggles, money, this and that. Like, how much do you think is everything is hitting you all at once? You know, because we're so hyper focused on jiu-jitsu for so long. And then, you know, at some point in life, you have to have other things going on, you know? So,
yeah. So I want to be very careful that what I say is accurate. Okay, because like first off, there's a whole just physiological aspect to a Manic episode where your brain waves and your brain chemistry and everything gets fucked up, and parts of your brain become overactive while other parts become underactive, and it's something that is not necessarily under your control at all. But there's also psychological aspects to it that impact like the severity and the shape of the Manic episode. For example, like I was under a lot of pressure in life. I had, I was dealing with injuries. I was in a toxic living situation. I was in things in Mount Vernon for me where I was not happy. I had a lot of reasons to not be happy, and I'm committed to not really talking too publicly about the specifics anymore. But just, I was under a lot of pressure in my head. Psychologically, I was getting beat down all the time. And there was an aspect of just it kind of exploding to it. So yes, you're right. There is a lot that goes on And every Manic episode is different. Not all Manic episodes are severe. My Manic episode went from, it was okay. And then the more the psychosis kind of kicked in, is the psychosis, being unable to discern reality from fiction at that point. I was believing stuff that in my regular state of mind, I would absolutely just not believe. There was a point where, and I was so susceptible to what people told me. There was a point where my brain was just completely blown open, and I just believed anything people said. A friend of mine, I was having such a bad time in life during the Manic episode. It was maybe relatively early on or halfway in, and I asked her. I said, "Am I in hell? Because this is fucking awful." And they said, "Yes, you're in hell. Everybody's a demon." And I believed them for a long time. I thought I was actually literally in hell, and I was dealing with the thought of that. And the thing is, you don't become retarded. You don't lose your intelligence when you're going through a Manic episode, but you're not able to take in context the same. It's like you have no comparison points anymore. Everything's fresh information. When someone tells me I'm in hell and that everybody's a demon trying to torture me, I fucking believed them, and I took it seriously, and I started fucking working on like OPSEC. If I'm in hell, what if they can read my mind? Well, I better stop talking about anything like that. I better get some goddamn holy water. That seems like a good idea. And I it's like, but at the same time, I was not able to fully grasp at all consequences whatsoever. I wasn't able to think about people's perception of me, how I was coming off. I wasn't able to think about just a lot of stuff like that. So it's basically like an alien was running around in my skin, is what it feels like. It doesn't feel like I was the one doing it, because me before the Manic episode would never say or do anything that I did. And me after the Manic episode definitely wouldn't. So it's like something happened to me that forced me into a state of mind where that stuff seemed reasonable. And that's not my fault. I do accept responsibility, and I have given out apologies where they're due, and I will continue to apologize for stuff that I think that I did wrong. But no, I don't, deep down in my core, I'm at the point now where it's like, no, I don't think it was my fault that the Manic episode happened. A lot of the stuff in the Manic episode was not my fault, because I didn't have a goddamn choice. I literally had no fucking choice.
So were you training like regularly when you started having a Manic episode?
No, if I'd have been able to train regularly, I think it might not have been that bad, because I'd have been able to focus myself in jiu-jitsu. Yeah. But again, the things in me in Mount Vernon with the team were incredibly toxic, and I did not want to be in that room.
Yeah, man. So that's something that I've noticed with high-level competitors. So you train yourself all day, every day, hard, right? This is how I kind of say is like, if you have a lion that's out in the wilderness and it's used to going out, hunting things, killing things, and it has testosterone of something that needs to go out and kill things, and then you take it and you put it in a box and it's just sitting there, you're going to have issues. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I've seen with a lot of athletes, actually. A lot of athletes have been through similar things that you're talking about. Because when you stop your sport, your whole life is jiu-jitsu. You stop the sport, now all your friends are gone because you're not with the same gym, right? Like a lot of guys don't really understand. Like when you leave a gym, that takes a major toll on you psychologically. If you're really in jiu-jitsu, like how we were in jiu-jitsu or martial arts, it's like that's your whole life. That's all your friends are there, everybody's there. So when you leave the gym, that's like leaving a relationship, and now if you're not
you
training,
are very much on the mark. You're very much on the mark,
and it's like you have a heartbreak from that, and then you have a lot of other things going on. So anybody who's going to judge the episode, you just don't really understand. I mean, everybody has the right to their opinion, but for me personally, I think that people go through things. You're clearly lucid, and you're clearly trying to make yourself better and bounce back. So everybody has to take that at face value and understand that, in my opinion.
My Discord channel called me the Dark Phoenix because I'm rising from the ashes of my own destruction.
Yeah, I love that. And that's like a comeback story. That's, to me, it's extremely inspiring. If you come back in jiu-jitsu and, you're back, you come back, you're piecing people up. Do you think they're like, let's say you came back and you were going to go to the IBJJF. Do you think IBJJF will let you compete?
Yeah, I didn't do anything illegal at all. So listen, there was a Reddit post that said Andrew got arrested in Mount Vernon for assault and battery or something like that, right? And it had like 700 upvotes. Here's the fucking real story. Okay. So everything in the Manic episode was me just saying crazy shit. I was not doing the things that people were saying that I was doing, and I had no intention of doing them. I was scared for my life, and I was just reacting and stuff. Okay, and there was stuff going on. But no. So listen, I got arrested in Mount Vernon. Okay, I went up and hugged a guy in Walmart that was a friend of mine that I thought, and he called the cops and said I strangled him. Okay, and the cops didn't look at the security footage. They just came and grabbed me, and I spent a night in a cell. And then I got let out in the morning. So the prosecutor watched the security footage, and he was like, "What the fuck?" Because I didn't do what they said I did. I did not fucking strangle anybody. I was very non-violent. Non-violence is like a core part of me. It doesn't really change. And then they watched the body cam footage of the cops watching the security footage, and the 3 or 4 of the cops made comments like, there's strangulation going on. Why are we even here? What the fuck? Wiltse didn't even do anything. But they got so much pressure from people at Daisy Fresh and people online that they kind of felt like they had to do something. So they just arrested me, I guess. But no, that was a false police report. Literally in the piece of paper that I got from the prosecutor, it said this is a false report. He said this is related to an ongoing social media dispute between Andrew Wiltse and Daisy Fresh. You know what I mean? So it's like, and Daisy, I don't know who went and posted that I got arrested on Reddit, but like, yeah, there's a lovely mugshot up there and stuff, but it's bullshit. The things people said that I did not do. Everything has been blown very much out of proportion.
You know, people want to see you fail. They, you know, maybe some guys that you pieced up back in the day, whatever. But here's the thing. So a lot of people have dealt with manic type things with themselves or with family members. Now, anybody who's going through a manic episode, you have to kind of give them leeway. You know what I'm saying? They might have done some crazy stuff. They might have said some crazy stuff, but they're not in the right state of mind, right? So, like,
it's not that they're not in the right state of mind. It's that you have to look at them like they're literally a different person.
Yeah, exactly.
Your personality can alter so much. I don't feel related to the person in the Manic episode at all, except for the fact that I have spotty memories. You know, there's some things I remember perfectly clearly, and I remember the crazy thought patterns that I had at the time that made me feel like it was okay to say the stuff that I did when it wasn't. And there's things that people have, you know, a friend of mine that I talked to, you're like, do you remember doing this or saying this? I'm like, no. But again, it's at the end of the day, it's all embarrassing stuff. It's really embarrassing is the word. And I'm committed to just not being embarrassed. I just don't give a fuck. I'm really at the point, I don't care what people have to think. If you don't like me because I had a fucking a public mental health breakdown where I didn't really do anything, I just talked a lot of crazy shit, then you can go fuck yourself. That's fine. I'm going to live my life, and part of living my life is going to involve making jiu-jitsu content, rolling, and doing fucking tournaments and shit. So get the fuck over it.
Everybody has should have the ability to bounce back from something like that. And, you know, with the manic thing, I know people who've had manic episodes very closely, and they completely different. Like, they might say some stuff like that just makes zero sense. That's, you know, I think everyone's after them or whatever, and they're like, oh, that didn't happen, when something clearly happened. And, you know, for me, I think it's kind of a spiritual thing. You know, like, you get down, for example, okay, so first, I'm very into psychology. So we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You know, let's say you lost the gym, right? So now you're kind of down on the needs. You just have a certain level of psychological stress going on. And then when we bring that into a spiritual thing, especially if you're like, you know, doing drugs or whatever, not saying you were, but I'm just saying in general, now you're kind of allowing whether you want to call it spiritually or not, like me, I would call them like demons. Yeah. And you're letting the demons kind of like come into you, kind of whisper in your ear, you know, and then you're up for days. And then, you know, now you just kind of start to create a narrative. You know, that's what I've seen happen, you know, and then you don't trust the people who really care about you, whatever, and then things just kind of spiral out of control, you know.
No, you're pretty spot on. There really is like a line you kind of go through, you know, as the sleep deprivation makes your mind start to degrade and the paranoia starts to kick in and the psychosis worsens, you know, you stop trusting people you're supposed to trust. My thing is I pushed everybody away. You know, like myself, just everybody. And listen, like I said, I'll give apologies where apologies are due. There's people I'm not fucking apologizing to. There's people I didn't want in my goddamn life, and the Manic episode made me cut them out so they can go fuck themselves. That's fine. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and the people who, like, I think, like, if people are gonna look at you going through an episode, you're clearly going through an episode, and they're like, "Oh, he's a scumbag. He's this. He's that." I mean, maybe, I don't know. You know, maybe, you know what I'm saying? But however, you got to give people leeway. You know what I'm saying? And so I want to show you actually something you kind of called it. You know what I'm saying? In your Daisy Fresh episode, you called it for a T kind of like prophetically. So I'm going to pull this up here. I want to get your take.
Let me talk about that. So that was back when I'd never had a Manic episode at all or anything like that. I had experienced hypomanic episodes, which were not that bad. They just made me a little more impulsive, and I was able to channel them into jiu-jitsu. I would fucking start cardio routines from hell, and I would come up with new techniques with the manic creativity and stuff. But, you know, there was no psychosis, nothing like that. And no one at Daisy Fresh ever had to experience my fucking bipolar, except for me getting depressed and trying to disappear for a little while. First off, I don't have an addictive personality whatsoever anymore. I've actually done enough internal mental health healing and fixing shit that I'm not really experiencing depression at all anymore. And I'm just not, without the depression, I don't need the escapism. And the escapism was mostly where my addictive personality kind of came from. You know, and if I'd find a video game that just completely captivated me, it would make me feel like I didn't have to live in my shitty life and my shitty body and my shitty head, and I would be able to escape into it. That's why one of the reasons why I read so much when I did, and I don't really struggle with that at all anymore. Now, for not living in the gym and being able to maintain the champion mindset and stuff like that, living in the gym is not essential. Like I said, living in the gym just made it easier. And for most people who aren't good at maintaining mental states and they don't really understand how to meditate or change their mental states at will or anything like that, or they aren't even aware of the fact that they should care about anything like that, they're people, they need to live in the gym. You know, I wasn't as aware of my own mental states back then as I am now. The Manic episode, the two Manic episodes that I've had made me look inwards heavily. You know, I'm aware when a weird thought comes from a weird place, and that's not supposed to be, it's not a thought that I would normally think now. And I meditate regularly now and stuff like that. But that guy in the video, he had been sheltered still.
Yeah. So are you like getting, because I'm sure your testosterone levels are still, you know, you're still that line with the high levels of testosterone. Are you like working out? Are you running?
My body feels fantastic, actually. My lower back and my neck, where Jacob Couch fucking herniated the disc in my neck and fucked it up more when he slammed me that one time. And my back, where Orlando Sanchez fucking, my injuries have basically just gone away. I'm really like unconcerned about my injuries at all. My body feels fantastic. I'm fast as fuck still.
Yeah. But are you working out? Like, you staying in the gym or running or doing push-ups, like, or is it just kind of you're just building back up?
My priority right now is kind of building my life up, and building my body up is secondary because my body feels fine. You know, for me, my priority, as long as I'm flexible, I can step on the mat. If I didn't train for 2 years, but I was flexible, I could step on the mat and just beat the fuck out of literally anyone I rolled with. Yeah. So my flexibility is good. I'm stretching consistently. The cardio, I haven't got around to doing a heavy routine yet, but that will come.
Yeah. Yeah, man. That's legit. So, you know, when you're living in the gym, so I want to go back. Why'd you even start doing martial arts in the first place?
Okay, so this is a little bit of an answer. When I was young, and my mom, when she lived out in Hawaii and my parents got divorced, she got partial custody. And in the summers, I would get flown out to Hawaii to spend my summer in Hawaii with my mom. And my mom was like, you need to do something, because at the time I was getting in fights at school. I had just moved from Los Angeles, California, specifically Topanga Canyon, to Drummond Island, Michigan, with my brother and my sister. And the problem is, Drummond Island's a really rural area up in northern Michigan. It's 1 mile from Canada. It's basically as far north and east as you can go. It's got really good people on it. It's great for retiring and stuff like that. But it's not very diverse, and it's very far right wing politically. And a lot of the far right, racist as fuck. Okay, so my sister's black, and when a lot of the kids had never seen a black person before, ever. They'd seen them on TV, and their parents were racist, and that just shit just goes down the generation, and they would just call her the N-word, and I'd be like, and I just fucking hated everybody around me so much. I was awkward. I didn't learn how to be socially like affluent and talk and get confidence and stuff like that until I was like 25. You know what I mean? So I just kept to myself mostly and just stewed in my own hatred, and I just imagined beating the fuck out of everybody. And when I went to Hawaii the first time, my mom got me involved in a judo club out there, and I think I was 13 at the time. And I did judo in Hawaii for the whole summer. And then when I went back to Drummond Island, I started training with a judo guy that was teaching on Drummond Island named Mike Ogden. Mike Ogden's a fantastic guy. He was like my first real mentor and friend, okay, that I had in life, because I didn't have any friends in school. So then I met this older guy, and he, became friends with him. I was 13 when I first showed up at the class. It was like a kids class, kind of, 13, 14-year-olds. It was like there were kids in my grade in the class, there were kids in the grade in front of me, and I was like, this is amazing because I fucking hate these little bastards so goddamn much at that time. And I drove them all out of the class. I didn't lose ever. I fucked them up brutally. Imagine rabid honey badger Wiltse, but with 13-year-old angst and just the inability to conceive of losing. I literally made them all quit. I really did. And then it ended up just being me and Mike Ogden for a lot of the time. And Mike Ogden actually would go to the bar on Drummond Island. And, when I started getting like 15 years old, he would just talk to his friends there. And the guys at the bar on Drummond Island, he's like, I got this 15-year-old kid. I bet you can kick your ass. And you'd get these people, for $20 bets. They'd come in, and I would have a training partner to just beat the fuck out of and spar with. And I just beat everyone up that he brought in. And it's just, I basically got private lessons in grappling. It was a judo class, but really it was no-gi grappling. We didn't hyper-focus on throws. We didn't hyper-focus on jiu-jitsu. We did a little bit of everything. Not as much, there wasn't really a ton of depth, I think, and we didn't have a lot of setups for our moves and stuff like that. Mike did the best that he could to just kind of keep up with me. And I injured him all the time. Yeah. And one time I armbarred him so hard, I hit him in the cheek with my heel, and I shattered his goddamn cheekbone. Yeah, and then what ended up kind of killing the class off was Mike got in a motorcycle accident and ended up breaking his neck. And then I tried to pick the class up myself. By then we had got a couple people, I used to just be happy if there were 2 or 3 people I could train with. So that was my life. It was just desperately wanting training partners, because all I wanted to do more than anything else in the world was train. My dream, I told people, was to just live in the gym and be able to train all the time. Yeah. And then I ended up going to college, and at college I got talked into moving down to Daisy Fresh, and then I actually got to live that dream for a while.
Yeah, man. So, that's great that you brought up that the training thing. So for me, nowadays, I'm a big guy nowadays. I'm 240 pounds nowadays, black belt. So when I go into a gym, there's really nobody for me to go with. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm just going to fuck up a lot of the lower belts. There's really not many big guys. But this is a problem that every black belt is going to have, at some point. So how did you get – so I want to know your philosophy on training when you're the best guy in the gym and you maybe have a bunch of white belt, blue belts. Because I'm assuming at some point at Daisy Fresh, it was you, your brother, and then you probably had a bunch of white belts and blue belts, right? So how do you train when it's a bunch of lower level people and to get good? Because I'm sure it's something a lot of people deal with.
So here's the thing. I only fuck with targeted specific training, goal-based training. When I'm, for weeks at a time, I'm working on a half guard series. I don't care who I go with. It doesn't matter. I'm just trying to get to half guard and execute my series and learn as much about it and do it as flawlessly as possible. Okay. So it's like, we always got told, if you can tap the guy you're going with 100 times, tap him 100 times. You're responsible for your own training. You're not responsible for anyone else's. So it's like, it's on you to learn how to learn. So for me, it never, I could train in a room full of white belts and go win the worlds. It really just wouldn't matter.
So if you're training in a room full of white belts, you're just going to do different stuff and just learn
blue belts. I probably need some blue belts. But.
That's hilarious. Yeah, man. So are you still thinking about doing MMA?
So I have done MMA. I have done 3 fights. My last fight was a title fight, and it was fucking brutally hard. It was against a guy named Ross Campbell. And I took the fight on like a week's notice because it was originally supposed to go to a friend of ours in the gym named Brandon Karcher, and Brandon Karcher got injured, and I came in as a replacement, and I had to cut a shitload of water weight, and we just did everything wrong. I didn't have a camp. I hadn't even really been doing stand up at the time. If people aren't aware, I've done Muay Thai and shit my whole life. Like I have okay stand up. You know, I know what I'm doing in basically any form of martial art. I've done Aikido, I've done Qigong, I've been around for a long ass time. But when you're not actively training it at the time, it is not the goddamn same. All I was doing was focusing on my jiu-jitsu. And it was a brutal fucking fight. I got kneed in the head fucking so many goddamn times because it was a title fight. And we were like knees and elbows and everything, you know.
It was a pro fight?
No, it was amateur title fight. And they allowed knees to the head.
Yeah, it's different. So people don't understand. In California, it's way different because like you have to wear shin guards and all that stuff. But yeah, people don't realize that no, that's a pro fight. That's literally a pro fight.
Basically a pro fight, yeah.
You know, so that's funny. Like everywhere else outside of California, especially in the Midwest, no, those fights are professional fights. Like you're getting kneed in the head, you're getting elbowed and stuff.
I ended up winning the fight. I ended up knocking him out with a 1-2 combo in the 3rd round. But on the feet, yeah, I knocked him out. Yeah, Pete, I got hands, motherfuckers. Yeah. But it was so brutal. It made me really second guess whether I wanted to do MMA anymore. And you know, like I love jiu-jitsu. I love grappling more than anything. I enjoy sparring when it comes to stand up. I enjoy the technique of Muay Thai and being able to weave kicks and elbows and punches and shit like that and look for angles and stuff. But MMA, I don't know. I'd have to really want to do the fight.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd need to have that inner fire. If I had that inner fire, that inner want, I would be my ability to just like weave. Imagine my buzzsaw passing, but I can punch, I can kick, I can wrestle, I can throw you, I can do all of it all at the same time. I just have so many different tools to work with in order to like slot what's effective in the moment. It's really like I just back when I would do MMA practice and shit with the guys, I would just overwhelm them badly. So like. I'm starting to now I'm kind of wanting to do it, man. You're making me want to do it. You're making me think about it.
Hey man, you know, that could be a good little redemption thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, for me, like, yeah, jiu-jitsu is cool and all, whatever, but you know, there's nothing like MMA, you know. And I think also like you took the fight on a week's notice. Like you didn't have time to properly prepare for the fight. You know, MMA. There's a bunch of scumbags in MMA or former scumbags. There's a lot of good guys. Basically, people can't judge you and be like, "Oh, you're this and that." Hey, people should have the right to bounce back. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I want to see you bounce back. And in jiu-jitsu, you know, there's a lot of people who are gonna talk trash on you. You know what I'm saying? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, depending on what they have to say, you know, criticism and feedback and stuff like that, I'm always open to. Yeah, people that are just coming at me to try to make me feel guilty or try to paint me as this evil monster or the bad guy, I'm not interested in what they have to say. You know, you can tell what people's what their goal is based on what they say. If you're really just trying to attack me, I don't give a fuck what you have to think. I don't know you. You're not part of my life. Why should I care? Yeah, you know, I'm building my own life. I'm doing what I want.
You know, I get it when like Reddit, when they like turn you off or whatever. But here's the thing. You can't judge somebody.
The well-known bastion of positivity r / BJJ.
It's not cool. It's not cool. Like, okay, he's going through something. Okay, great. If he's good now, let him back in. You know what I'm saying? It makes zero sense. People want to get on this moral high ground. And really it's because I think, you know, certain people in the game you might have beef with, whatever. But like, so when you
I don't have beef with anyone. I'm just going to clarify. I don't have beef with anybody. You know, I don't like my former team. I didn't like them for a long time. They was very toxic, and there's a lot of stuff that happened in there. But I'm not going to talk about it. I really am committed to just not talking about people and not talking about the toxic stuff. You know, sometimes stuff comes out. People ask me questions, but I'm trying very hard to keep my mouth shut. Okay, because I don't want to be at war with anyone. I don't want beef with anybody. That's just stupid. Why would I want that in my life? So I'm back on like this really hyper positive mindset that I used to be able to maintain. You know, positivity only.
Yeah, positive, addicted to positivity. Yeah, I
Negativity
feel
doesn't
you.
get me anything in life. It doesn't get me anywhere. Positivity brings people around. Positivity brings like people that want to help you and give you opportunities and shit,
Yeah.
you know?
I agree, 1,000,000%. So, like, let's say you want to compete ADCC or you want to compete in, whatever the case may be. Do you think there's going to be roadblocks, or you think it's just you show up and just beat their ass and they have to let you in? Me personally, I think you show up, you beat their ass, they got to let you in. You know what I'm saying?
I don't see why I couldn't just go compete at their trials and win. That'd be weird.
Yeah, 100%. That you have the right to do that. People have done all types of crazy things in jiu-jitsu. So now, the podcast is called Learn to Fight. There's a lot of people who really, really want to learn to fight. You know what I'm saying? But they're scared to go in the gym. Maybe they're awkward. They're an awkward kid. You were saying you were an awkward kid. You had the opportunity to learn judo, but something that you said that I found to be very interesting. You said for MMA, you believe that the guillotine choke is like the best move or something like that.
I think the guillotine is one of the strongest moves, period, in all of jiu-jitsu because of the versatility of when you can bust it out, the control that a front headlock in general gives you to be able to advance your position or stop your opponent from doing anything offensive or defensive, and the threat of the finish and the various finishes like the anaconda and the Doris and everything you can chain from the guillotine. It's disgusting. I went through a guillotine phase where all I did was guillotines, and I was guillotining people 50 times in 5-minute rounds, and it was just like, I literally stopped doing it because I thought it was just so powerful. It was boring. I got bored, and then I stopped doing it for a long time. It was a mistake of mine. I should have just kept using it. But yeah, the guillotine is disgustingly powerful.
Yeah, I agree, and that's something that when you kind of said that, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna lock in on the guillotine. So you think it's best to get it from like and the way you're describing it, you get it from every situation, every angle. So you don't even have to just wait for someone to shoot on you to get it. You can force them in that guillotine. Which grip do you like? Do you like this grip? Which grips are you using with that?
I like to grab my wrist. I think I get a little more pry leverage to go up. Yep.
Like that?
Yep.
Yeah. So have you seen the McKenzie team? The Cody
Yeah, I've probably seen it, but I'm not familiar with the term.
This one, he uses a different grip, but yeah, so with what do you think is the most you think the guillotine's the most powerful move in jiu-jitsu? Your knee slice pass is obviously, I think, your best move. I think your whole game starts from your knee slice pass. And because that's my shit, I love the knee slice. And I actually was watching you to make my knee slice better. Because I remember when we went. So for everyone, people who don't know, Wiltse, me and him, we faced each other probably like twice. He fucked me up. He took me down.
We trained together
My
too.
guard.
We trained together at Mike Rogers.
Mike Rogers? I never actually trained at Mike Rogers.
Oh,
yeah, I
okay,
trained
man.
at.
I'm thinking of someone else. Sorry.
Yeah, now I trained at Gracie Baja with Mike Buckles in St. Louis, and before that, I trained at with Nick Sanders, BJJ, and before that, I trained at some gym, purple belt dude. I used to do backyard fights back in the day, like high school. We just kind of learned MMA on my own, which was my buddies, just trying to figure it out because we really, really wanted to learn how to fight, But no, yeah, the first time I ever went against you was, I think, at blue belt. It was the first time. Yeah, did you won white belt worlds, right?
So the white belt worlds I did not get to compete at. I won the white belt pans.
Okay. So were you a legit white belt, or were you like a 10-year white belt or a blue belt? That's what a lot of people are going to say.
I went through my white belt as fast as we could, really. I only got to compete at a couple tournaments just to learn how to compete in general, and I got my blue belt basically right away. But yeah, no, people called me a sandbagger really early on in my career. They don't realize how little jiu-jitsu, like technical jiu-jitsu knowledge that I had. Like I knew what an armbar was when I first moved in the gym, but I didn't really have a lot of setups for it. Everything was really loose, and I hadn't really got to I didn't know what X guard even existed. There was just so much I didn't know. So really, 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 really basic judo-based jiu-jitsu is what I had. I didn't have a black belt in judo or anything like that. But I went from white to blue extremely quickly, and then I basically did all of my belts as fast as the IBJJF time requirement would let me.
Mm. So, your blue belt test. You tell me about that?
It was the worst thing I've ever done. And that includes having a fucking public Manic episode that ruined my reputation. Not ruined. I'll build a reputation of some kind back. But you did fuckloads of damage in my goddamn life. Personal, professional, all of it. The blue belt test was worse. Okay. So the blue belt test started out, it's at Rodrigo Vagues is where it was administered. And we measured his mats, and we started out, we did like 30 or 40 laps of bear crawls, which was 1.5 miles. And that was the start of the test. And you don't get the whole test, you don't get any break, you don't get any water. You are not allowed to take a break or stop whatsoever.
How long did that take to do the bear crawls?
Oh, fuck, I don't know. Time stopped existing during this test. Seriously, just the bear crawls alone, there were guys in my test that were folding. I passed bodies. They were just laying there. So a dude lost his pants and his gi. He was in his underwear doing the bear crawls. And I was just like, what the fuck is going on? This is brutal. And I was in really, really good shape at the time. And I had done bear crawls and stuff to get myself ready for the test because I had an idea what was coming. People weren't really allowed to tell us about what specifically was coming. And they changed it every test. And then we went and we did like 400 up downs. And then we did like 20 down and back laps of wheelbarrows or partners holding your feet and you walk on your hands. And then we did fucking body drags down the mat where you upper body, you just kind of press yourself and pull yourself down the mat. Basically, anything they can think of that you could do to fuck you up. The point is to break you. Okay, the point is to break you and then make you keep going anyways. So the idea, it's kind of like if you can catch a fly with a chopstick, you can do anything. If you can break and keep going in the blue belt test and complete it, you can do anything. That's the idea. It's old school mentality. It's fucking hard. It's meant to be hard. And then after 2 hours of that, all of the upper belts file in. No white belts were allowed to watch the test. And you do 10-minute rounds with a 1 minute break between. You're still not allowed to get any water yet. And every time you get tapped, you got to do 20 push-ups. And all the upper belts did the test themselves. They're there to fuck you up, man. They have zero mercy in their souls. They wanted to tap me badly because as a white belt, everyone in the Rodrigo Vagues Association was starting to hear about me already because I was a disgustingly good white belt. I was tapping black belts as a white belt. I really literally was. Everybody thinks that you can't be incredibly good at something as a white belt. I drilled fucking X pass into jumping armbar thousands of goddamn times, and I'm athletic and smart. It doesn't matter how fucking what belt you have. When I X pass you and you post on my hip and I grab your sleeve and rip your fucking whole body up into the air and jump into an armbar, you're gonna have to tap. I do not give a fuck what belt you are. And I would do that to black belts. And that's what I mean. I've never in my entire life cared about the accolades or how good someone's supposed to be or are. I've only cared about what I'm going to do to win no matter what. So in the test, I everyone was out for my blood. I tapped a couple of the purple belts that I wasn't supposed to be able to tap them. I didn't get tapped out in the entire test. If I thought I was in danger, I would just put people in spider guard and they would try to throw my legs to the side. My legs were like trembling. I was the most fucked up I'd ever been in my entire life. And I would just like regard, put my spider guard back in or put lasso in and just hold and just survive, And then I passed one of the black belts guards. And then I had another black belt come over and fucking he passed my guard and fucked me up for the whole round. And Mike Rogers actually put his stomach on my goddamn chest, took his hands, feet off the mat, started bouncing up and down on me. He's a big ass guy, just brutalized me. If he had mercy, he didn't tap me and make me do push-ups. He could have for sure. Yeah, the blue belt test was rough.
So after that test, the next day you just beat the shit, but you have a new mindset.
I just got up and trained the next day. A lot of people didn't train. Like most people that do the blue belt test don't train the next day. I just got up and trained. My body was destroyed, But for me, I used to have this the idea of losing was unacceptable, and that would translate into like I have to get up and train because I can't let the losing mentality creep in at all, even a little bit. There's no
Love that.
resting because if I rest,
Yeah.
I might fucking lose, and I can't lose.
The
I have
losing
real mental
mentality.
issues, you know.
I like what you said there. The losing mentality. That's why you see sometimes guys who've been winning forever. Because Israel Adesanya just fought yesterday, and he's on a 3-fight losing streak now. And I think part of it is, how can you be so undefeated for so long? The losing mentality sometimes creeps in, even to some of the best, and you have to go and you have to find a way to eradicate that from your mindset. I think that's what it is, the losing mentality. I love how you said that. It makes a lot of sense. Have you ever had rhabdomyolysis before?
What's that?
So whenever you train a shit ton and you train so much, you're overtrained and your muscles start to break down.
Yeah.
Especially if you're like pissing red almost. Yeah, you're pissing red and your body can't recover. So I had rhabdo a couple years ago. This point, like 3-4 years ago. At this point, 3 years ago, and from cutting weight, like basically you have so much muscle damage that your body just really can't recover. You know what I'm saying? And you could die from it. Actually, rhabdomyolysis. A lot of athletes who train super hard get it.
I've never peed red or anything like that, but I've definitely overtrained myself to the point where it's unhealthy, and it was
And you
detrimental to my
train?
ability to gain skill and stuff. Yeah.
At that point, you just keep going, or what? You take a
Just
rest.
so that was the mentality of the team, man. They didn't really believe in sports physiology based fucking science, none of it. It was go hard all the time, and I'm down to go hard. I go harder than literally anybody, but you have to be smart. You have to go hard and go smart. So I hated it so much, but I was constantly overtraining.
So like nowadays, let's say you go back to training, right? How would you approach your training? Would you still train?
I'm going back to training
6 hours a day? Say again?
Yeah, I have no problem with it. So it's not about bulk. It's about okay, look at it like poison. It's about the dosage. Okay, it's about the dosages. So it's like there's so many different factors to training. Like you can drill, but your drilling doesn't have. Some of your drilling should be really, really, really hard, so you can train your body and mind to be able to perform at those high speeds with high amounts of pressure. And some of your drilling could just be slow and you're really paying attention and you're trying to think about how could I do this move differently in a way that would make it more effective? Like where exactly should I be putting my foot after an X pass? How close to their hip, higher towards their shoulder or lower towards their hip? Where should my knee go? Should it be angled towards their solar plexus more or more towards their hip? You know what I mean? Like the specific details you should be experimenting and figuring out. And that's when I talk about take ownership of your own jiu-jitsu, that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. I was always trying to figure out my own techniques.
Yeah.
You could invent moves. If you haven't invented a move for yourself in jiu-jitsu, you're fucking up.
Yeah.
But if you learn how to partition your training properly, you can get away with doing lots of training, you know. But people just think training, they just think rolling or hard drilling or stuff like that. You know, it's like I consider part of my training regimen, you know, watching footage. I consider part of my training regimen my conditioning stuff, my drip, my stretching, all of it. So yeah, I would do 4 to 8 hour days depending on what I was working. Some of my 10,000 rep sessions where I was doing 2 to 3 moves, 10,000 reps, because that's what we were doing at the time. You know, it take me hours to do.
You do 10,000 reps in a day?
I have done that before and it sucked, but that doesn't get you anything. That was stupid.
Yeah.
No. So you would do 333 reps of each move, and I would do like 4 different moves at a time. So I'd be getting better over the course of a month at 4 different stuff. Incremental improvements are the way to continuously keep going and never stagnate and master stuff. So, yeah.
So when you're ready to start competing again, finding a gym, are you just going to start your own shit, or how are you going to go about, you know, because you're at a certain point where once you get really, really good,
I have stuff going on. I'm gonna keep quiet about some of the stuff that I'm going on because some might fall through. You know, we'll see, but it's hopeful. I'm optimistic. I have some neat things going on.
Yeah. All right.
I'm gonna say next question on that one. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. So let's go completely left for a second. All right. So, you know, Trump's in office. You said in Michigan there was a lot of racist people. So here's my thing. in St. Louis, ton of racist people, especially if you go to the hillbilly side, right? I don't think that being far right, for me, I'm a free thinker. I'm not Republican. I'm not Democrat. I'm a free thinker. I just take the information based on what's going on, and then I make a decision based off of that. So, so with Trump being in office, and the whole zeitgeist changing, the whole everything's changing. Me personally, so far, I think he's doing good stuff. So in theory, a lot of the liberal stuff, because I used to be liberal, but now I'm a free thinker. In theory, a lot of the stuff that the liberal mindset has, it comes from a good place, but in practicality, it ends up causing chaos a lot of times. So, for example, in California, they wanted to protect I forget what fish is called, right? Okay, so now they turn off the water, and now we're in a situation where, boom, fire starts. Oh, there's no water in there. But meanwhile, in California, we're paying crazy, crazy taxes, and we're getting dog shit treatment. You go to Missouri, that never happens. But if you go to the more Republican side of California, like Orange County, it's super nice. You know what I'm saying? But if you go to LA, dog shit. You know what I'm saying? There's potholes everywhere. We're paying crazy taxes. So for me, I'm a free thinker, but I want to get your take on stuff like that. I mean, I don't know if you've been in California in a while, but
I'm not too updated on the political scene in California or stuff like that. Listen, I've historically been extremely anti-Trump, right? Mm-hmm. And most people know that. But I just want to say congratulations on your win. It is actually impressive. He clearly does not give a fuck what anyone thinks. No one can get him down. He lost and then ran again anyways and managed to win. And I don't know if anyone in the history of the United States has done that. I'm not sure. It sounds fucking unprecedented. At least it's impressive. So congratulations, Trumpers, on your victory. You guys, I hope you guys do good. I hope you guys do good stuff with it. Trump is the president. That means he is my president. I do not want him to fail, because then that is bad for the country.
Yeah. I'm not a Trumper at all. I'm more I look at what's going on. If he starts doing stupid stuff, I'll be like, nah, I don't like the guy in a heartbeat. But I just think there's so much for example, okay, let's say we have Wiltse, right? I feel like the left-wing media, if we took Wiltse, and they can say all types of crazy stuff about you, and just, I don't know. I feel like when I kind of started looking at Trump different was when COVID happened, and I just seen a lot of weird stuff going on in California. You know what I'm saying? Like with Gavin Newsom and these guys, because in California, they put crazy lockdowns on us, and a lot of people went out of business, stuff like that. And I'm just like, nah, this isn't really how it's supposed to be, So I feel like a lot of times, people will go far right because, people are just so far left, but, I don't know. That's just my 2 cents, but I'm not a Trumper by any means. I'm whoever is, I feel, doing the right stuff. Because, for example, you talk about racist people. Biden is extremely racist. He's well documented, super racist. Did you know that?
I've heard that in the 60s he made racial statements, and he'd passed bills or supported bills that were segregatory and stuff. So yeah.
Oh yeah, man, bro. We're all on positivity, but yeah, like Biden, extremely racist. So, so how did you get this mindset, being that you lived in Michigan, in like a very rural area and stuff, a lot of racist people around you? What was different about you that you?
My core tenets are critical thinking and rationality. If you try to distill what I value the most in the world, it is critical thinking and rational thinking. And people don't really understand what those means. That means you're always thinking about reality, and you're trying to think about optimal ways to achieve your goals in reality, dealing with reality. Which is hilarious that I had a goddamn full-on psychosis episode. It turns out you cannot outthink a mental health disorder. You need to take medication. Which was interesting. I tried. It didn't work. But because I'm a critical thinker and I'm a rational thinker, when I'm not dealing with anything going on extraneous up here, look, I'm just going to be honest. You're right when you say the liberals, they're trying to do the right thing. A lot of the liberal policies get pushback and they get kind of sabotaged and prevented from working the way that they're supposed to work when they are actually the rational thing to do. And they get straw man to the right, and the right thinks that the left is doing something retarded or heinous when in reality they're not. But I'm not really in a politics phase in my life right now. I have a lot of political views, but I'm keeping those to myself.
Yeah,
Part of my positivity only kick. I'm not trying to piss people off even more. You know what I mean?
I feel you. But I think
Listen, let me say this just to appease people. At the end of the day, left or right, it doesn't matter. You're still goddamn Americans.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's like, if people have different views, that's perfectly fine. We need to be able to talk with each other and, let's say, have a far right. Like for me, I could talk to someone who's a far right racist and not have issues. Like, all right, I don't agree with you, but we don't need to hate each other. You know what I'm saying? Even though you might hate me because I'm black, but it's just not really like, I think we need to get to a place where people could say crazy shit and people not just flip out so much about it. You're perfect. So is there anything like you want people to know going into 2025 or anything you got coming up? Anything you want to promote?
Yeah. So listen, I'll just let me say a couple things. So, like, guys, I know I was out of control and I said a lot of stuff that was out of line. I also know for a fact that what people were saying that I did was lies. And there was a lot of rumors being spread about me that were not true. And I'm not interested in apologizing for that stuff. No, I don't feel fully responsible for the fact that I had the Manic episode and it got as bad as it did because I didn't have any goddamn control over it. I wouldn't choose to let that happen to myself, and I don't want it to ever happen again. But yes, I remember some stuff. I don't remember a lot of it, but the stuff I do remember, I feel very bad about, and I want to make it up to people. Apologies. No problem apologizing. If you hate me, I also don't give a fuck. I don't. I really don't. I think you don't have a good reason. Okay? Because I've been a nice guy my entire life. Went through a fucking mental health crisis that I had no control over. I'm going to go back to being a nice guy, and that's fine. It's my life. I'm going to do what I want. If you guys want to learn really cool jiu-jitsu stuff from me and keep up with what's going on, I have a YouTube channel called Wiltse BJJ. I do a lot of online coaching, and I offer footage breakdown where I take my analytical mind and we go over the footage together on Discord calls and stuff like that. My Patreon account, that's patreon.com/WiltseBrothersBJJ. And I think that kind of covers it.
Yeah, well, perfect, man. Hey, I had a great time talking to you. Hoping the best for you, and I hope to see you in jiu-jitsu soon or MMA. I think that'd be awesome, and I'm really rooting for your comeback story and everything, man.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Appreciate you, my man. Wiltse BJJ, check him out. Subscribe. Much love. Learn to fight.